Is everyone ready? Okay, here we go. Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, July 10th, 2025 meeting of the Arlington County Planning Commission. I am Commissioner Tenley Peterson, the chair. Welcome to the last meeting of the Planning Commission before summer recess. We will reconvene with our regularly scheduled meetings beginning with September 3rd and 4th. The following agenda items will be discussed and voted upon: the Shirlington House Site Plan 480, editorial corrections to the adopted FY26 CPHD and zoning fee schedule, and 2 adaptive reuse site plan amendments to convert office building space into residential use and ground retail. Presenters and speakers joining the meetings through Microsoft Teams, please keep your phones and other electronic devices muted until you are called upon by the clerk. Please turn off sound to any devices around you to minimize interference, and keep your cameras off until the clerk announces your name to speak. When called upon, you must unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon that is in the meeting command bar at the top of your screen. The moderator nor the clerk has the ability to unmute your mic. Once you have spoken, please mute your mics and turn your cameras off. If you are dialing in by phone to join the meeting, press *6 to unmute. Public speakers will be called upon by the clerk at an assigned time. Pre-registration with email confirmation is required to speak at tonight's hearing. We are not able to accommodate additional speakers. All speakers will receive 2 minutes to comment as an individual. Only representatives of a county board appointed advisory group, committee, and/or commission will receive 3 minutes to comment. A timer will be displayed on the screen if speaking virtually, and speakers in person will follow the timer stationed on the podium. Audio of tonight's meeting is available via phone. If commissioners, presenters, or speakers lose internet connectivity, please reconnect by phone. However, if you are dialing in by phone and unable to see the screen, we will provide an audible 30-second warning to wrap up your comments. You will be muted when time has expired. The meeting chat is active for presenters or commissioners who need technical assistance only. Please do not use the meeting chat for discussion, public comment, questions about agenda items, or requests for further information. All public comment must be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public testimony period. Tonight's meeting will be available for review through the YouTube platform. A link has been provided on the Planning Commission's website 24 to 48 hours after the adjournment of the meeting. Although the meeting will no longer be a live broadcast, the meeting will be available for review with closed captioning on Comcast Xfinity channels 25 and 1085, Verizon Fios channels 39 and 40, 24 to 48 hours after the adjournment of the meeting. Lastly, this is a public forum. Tonight's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website via a link to YouTube as stated. All information associated with tonight's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act requirements. We do have Commissioner Lantelmi joining us virtually tonight. Nice to see you, Commissioner Lantelmi. Madam Clerk, can you please call our first item?
Our first item for the evening is SPLN 24-00001, Site Plan number 480. This is to construct up to 73 new dwelling units at the Shirlington House with modifications for additional density, parking ratio, parking space size, drive aisle width, required loading spaces, compact parking, and other modifications necessary to achieve the proposed development located at 4201 31st Street South. We have Peter Schultz, our project manager, to present this item.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I have Sergio Verroquea with me here as DES Transportation Planning Development Services Bureau. This is a request for a new site plan located at 4201 31st Street South. Currently, the existing building is a 10-story apartment building constructed by Wright in the early 1960s. Has 436 dwelling units, 10 stories. I will speak a little later about this, but there was in 1981, due to the site having changes in the RA 615 zoning ordinance as to how density was calculated in that district, and plus land being taken in the 1970s for I-395 widening, the site became non-conforming to the RA 615 regulations, so it requested a variance in 1981, which permitted them the existing number of dwelling units in the existing building to remain. There's actually two portions of the site. There's you'll see in the zoning category in the next slide, but to the east is the Shirlington Phase Development Site Plan with the Citizen Apartments built in the 1980s, the County Trade Center to the north, and the Park Shirlington Apartments to the west, a subject of a site plan most recently to add new units to that site. As I said before, it's actually two parcels. The main parcel of the site is zoned RA 615. That's a higher density apartment district where density is measured in units per acre, not floor area ratio, and height is measured in stories, not strict feet. RA 1426 portion parcel across the street, that's also going to be incorporated into this site plan. It's unbuilt and it will remain unbuilt. It's used to support density for the existing building across the street. The low medium residential designation actually postdates the construction of the building and the RA 615 zoning. The county board adopted that in 1964. 3 years after the first GLUP was adopted. Most recently in 2017, the Housing Conservation District overlay was put on it and the neighboring Park Shirlington. That is will be a subject of a discussion later. That's the main guidance for this site. Existing conditions, just to show you, it's because it was built by right, above ground parking garage, the building itself at the top of a hill, the parking garage somewhat tucked into the hill, multiple entrances to that parking garage visible from the street, 4-foot sidewalk with no street trees. And as you see along here, sidewalk immediately next to parked cars on both north and south sides of the street. You see on the west side, the neighboring Park Shirlington Apartments and the entrance to the surface parking, and above the second level of above grade parking, an existing crosswalk. The proposed development here is for a multifamily building and then 7 2-unit buildings, 6 of which are paired together in a sort of fourplex configuration, using, of course, the entire site area, and the existing building is going to remain, the existing parking is going to remain. 564 spaces proposed, 567 current parking spaces that the applicant will explain, I'm sure, in their presentation. Just a few parking spaces removed for rearranging to adding bike parking in the parking garage, as well as adding internal circulation to the site from the public street into the existing building. The policy guidance that we've used here is the Housing Conservation District Policy Framework. The County Board adopted the GLUP amendment, calling this a Housing Conservation District, and guidelines associated with it. I'm not going to read all of these, but the idea is to preserve market rate affordable housing, incorporate sustainable building practices, provide committed affordable rental housing, encourage creation of underrepresented housing forms, and ensure projects are compatible to their surroundings and existing infrastructure and transit can support it. So the applicant is proposing infill development. The existing building and the existing parking is being kept. As you see, the existing density is 436 units, and that was permitted specifically by a variance. The existing building is non-conforming, but the BZA made it conforming. The applicant is requesting additional density under section 1237A of the zoning ordinance, which allows existing apartment buildings to add density if the applicant is also providing committed affordable housing on site. So it's a special section of the ordinance under which the applicant is requesting this infill development. The site design and layout, the applicant will tell you, but among other things, you see the existing building on the southeast corner of the site, and then the 2 units grouped together in groups of 2, so sort of 4 units, and then the 1 unit off to the left there. The developer will also explain, and we'll show you, they improved the internal circulatory pattern to preserve the existing shortcut to Shirlington and the existing pathway from the existing building and improve the existing pathway from the existing building to the bus stop shelters on 31st Street. Site design and layout, you see, an applicant will show you more here. You see how these units are liner units, as we call them, are laid out. They're intended to screen the parking garage, and they each have individual entrances. They will be apartments, as the rest of the site will be. The architecture, as the applicant will explain in greater detail, is compatible with the existing. The new building proposed on the left of largely the same colored brick and fenestration pattern as the existing building on the right. Site access, there will be 1 new loading entrance created in the new apartment building. All existing entrances will remain because, again, the existing parking garage is going to remain. And of course, there's going to be also new bicycle parking to accommodate the new development. The applicant is below the permitted lot coverage, and in fact, street trees are going to be added through this project, as well as landscaping at the west side of the site by narrowing an over-wide, that is excessively wide, driveway into the surface parking of the property. It allowed them to create also a new sidewalk into the side, the existing building, and create a landscaped buffer further to the Park Shirlington Apartments adjacent. The applicant's requesting bonus density for green building at 0.25 FAR, lead multifamily high-rise and multifamily mid-rise. Site features and improvements. I want to distinguish between improvements that are associated with additional density and general improvements that we get with nearly every site plan development. Improvements associated with additional density include 12 on-site committed affordable housing units, 6 of which are 2 bedrooms. These will be in the new buildings. LEED Gold, Energy Star, and Community Priority credits at 0.25 FAR. General improvements we're going to be getting: westbound bike lane, which is the uphill direction. An improved streetscape and pedestrian experience. As you see in the staff report, some of the sidewalk is not compliant with ADA. Constructed as it was in the 1960s, there will be access across curb cuts to the existing garage. Improved internal site circulation, wider internal walkways to the bus stop, the shortcut to Shirlington, an new route preserved. Not the exact route, but the shortcut is preserved with a new route. Relocated bus shelter and the usual public art contribution and transportation demand management, improved on-site bicycle facilities, unbundling the parking from rent. The requested modifications are mostly related to actually keeping that existing parking as is. The compact parking percentage, it was, of course, much higher percentages were permitted at the time, as well as over the intervening decades. The width of parking spaces has changed several times in the zoning ordinance. Drive aisle width in a couple small areas. Parking space size. Some of the parking spaces are somewhat smaller than the current compact parking standards, although that was permitted in the past, smaller parking spaces. A modification for loading space for the existing building. There is an existing loading space for the existing building. So the applicant is requesting to keep that existing. If that building were being built today, it would need 3 loading spaces. But for the past 60 years, it seems that the one off-street loading space for the existing building has been sufficient for the building. And a reduction of parking from the existing ratio for the existing building, that is a requirement actually in section 12 of the zoning ordinance that the board can modify it, but usually the requirement is that if new density is added, that it not reduce the ratio of parking for the existing building. However, as stated in the staff report, the existing parking greatly exceeds even the by right parking standards, and even after the addition of these new buildings, it still will exceed the required by right parking if this whole building were built by right today. And the modification, as I stated before, for additional density for the provision of those 12 on-site CAFs in LEED Gold with Energy Star and Arlington's priority credits. The summary of engagement, we had the online engagement in February 2025 with a total of 130 respondents. The responses informed SPRC discussion. There was one SPRC meeting on April 21st, 2025. That was sufficient to vet all of the issues raised by the online engagement as well as our standard agenda. The applicant had, in fact, by that point, adjusted their plans based on online engagement feedback. They retained parking on the south side of 31st Street to the maximum extent possible. There will be a few fewer parking spaces, but those are metered spaces Monday through Friday, 12-hour limited parking. They added a bike lane and improved internal circulation to the existing building. Commissions that have heard this was the Transportation Commission on June 30th. Unanimously recommended approval tonight. The Housing Commission will also be hearing this item. Because this project advances the policies of the Housing Conservation District to preserve existing older housing and encourage infill development compatible with existing development, staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend that the County Board adopt the attached ordinance with incorporating the existing building and site with all of the conditions recommended by staff. And this is just shows us a little public process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we'll go to an applicant presentation. I see our clerk has teed you up for 12 minutes. Perfect. So please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Peterson. Good evening, everyone. My name is Matt Allman. I'm a land use attorney with Venable, representing Snell Properties, the owner of Shirlington House. I want to start by thanking Mr. Schultz for all of his work on this case and for the coordination and leadership that he helped shepherd us through the process with. We can move right into the first topic of land use and density. I believe you saw this slide in Mr. Schultz's presentation, but just to orient everyone, this is the existing building here, 10 stories, constructed by right in 1963. It contains 436 units and is served by a multi-level parking structure with 567 spaces. It's roughly a block away from the Shirlington Bus Depot, which you can see right in the top right corner of the image. The existing condition photos on the following slide illustrate the topography of the site, which is really the defining feature down at the 31st Street elevation. The grade falls away so steeply that it actually exposes the garage, which you can see here in the photo. And the photos also illustrate the auto-oriented nature of this stretch of 31st Street, right? There are street parking lanes on either side, but there's not much in the way of bike infrastructure, and the sidewalks are quite narrow. Next slide. This is the glut map, which I believe we saw earlier. As Mr. Schultz noted, the site is planned for low-medium residential use, and it's located within the Housing Conservation District, but it is not located within a master planned area or a sector plan area. The site is split zone between the RA 615 district and RA 1426 district, and is subject to a variance relative to the existing building and its height and density, but otherwise there are no other special zoning approvals for the site. Here's the proposed infill plan, and you'll note that the existing apartment building is remaining as is, and that is largely the story for the existing parking garage as well. There's a little bit of restriping that's occurring within the parking structure, but it's fairly modest. The infill takes two different formats. Along 31st Street, we have the liner building units, which are a stacked 2/2 townhouse or duplex format. And those are interspersed directly along the 31st Street frontage. And then you have the more traditional multifamily, which is a 7-story, 59-unit building in the bottom right corner. The zoning tabulations on the next slide are just more here for reference. I certainly won't read out any of this to you, but I'll just note that the total aggregate addition of density is 73 units and 90,000 square feet. I'll also call your attention to the relatively high ratio of 2 and 3 bedroom units in the new product. And that's largely driven by the liner units, which are all 3 bedroom. The existing site design is shown on the screen here. There are 3 vehicular entrances into the site, into various portions of the garage. The pedestrian facilities are comparatively lacking compared to the vehicular entrances. You can walk up that main site driveway into the parking lot and to the front door of the building, but there's not a great designated way to do that. There is a secondary building entrance and sidewalk, which you can see on the right side of the image. And again, you have the street parking on either side of 31st and existing bus stops on either side of 31st. The pedestrian facilities are getting a big upgrade with this proposal. And in fact, this image is even newer and updated since SPRC. The big move with respect to the streetscape is narrowing the main site entrance. And by bumping out that curb, it gives additional space for the addition of a new ADA ramp and a new walkway up into the interior of the site, as well as a relocated bus stop and a new crosswalk. The liner building units will have stoop entrances directly out onto 31st Street, as well as the new multifamily building will have its lobby sited directly on 31st Street. And then we are replacing that sidewalk connection on the north side of the multifamily building, and that will provide access to both the existing and the new buildings. The vehicular circulation isn't changing all that much with the plan. The 3 vehicular entrances will be retained, but with some safety upgrades and some design upgrades to make those work a little bit better for both drivers and pedestrians. As staff noted, there is a new loading dock integrated into the multifamily building. The bike facilities are also undergoing an upgrade with the proposal, principally with the addition of a new 5-foot bike lane, but also new entry points into the garage into a series of expanded and new secure bike parking areas. The street sections shown here, the existing ones, again, sort of highlight the auto-oriented nature of the development with 2 drive aisles, 2 parking lanes, but no bike lane, very narrow sidewalks. And then on the next slide, you can see the proposed configuration. By removing one of those 2 parking lanes, it gives space for the streetscape to bump out and implement that bike lane, the tree pit, the 6-foot clear sidewalk. And this particular image shows the relationship to the multifamily building. And on the next slide, you can see the relationship to the liner unit. So moving to architecture, we have a comparative massing image that shows the buildings in relation to one another and to the surrounding context. The 7-story multifamily building sits at the low point of the site, which helps it blend into the larger context of the neighborhood and to the site. The floor plan for the multifamily building shows the lobby and leasing space sited directly on the sidewalk, since those are the most active uses, but with units on the ground floor and some back of house as well. The architectural palette for the building features a mixture of brick and metal panel and other materials in a warmer, more earth tone series of colors. And this is done in reference to the tan brick color of the existing building, which we wanted to complement but not match too directly. On the next slide, you'll see the footprints of the liner building units as they intersperse along 31st Street. And then on the following slide, you can see that same architectural vocabulary brought through to the liners. The following slide shows an area between the liner units where we have some utility conflicts and can't do much in the way of new construction, but we're proposing to green up that area and apply a decorative metal panel to just tie the architecture together and screen that garage a little better. There's already been some discussion about parking. So the main points I'll leave you with is that the existing garage, like many of its era, is overbuilt and underutilized, and there's a lot of excess capacity there. So it makes total sense to have the new residents utilize that existing parking. And even with the addition of that new density, we're still at a very comfortable 1.1 space per unit ratio. The street parking shown on the next slide has definitely undergone a lot of evolution throughout the process, but as staff noted, we've landed at a place where we're keeping the parking on the south side of the street and eliminating it on the north side of the street in favor of the bike lane, which we think is a good trade-off because it minimizes that loss of the street parking to the greatest extent possible. We did conduct a multimodal transportation assessment, which found that the increase in peak hour trips was minimal and could easily be handled by the existing network without any mitigation. The open space for the project consists of some public-facing and more private components. Along 31st Street, of course, we have the new street trees and tree pits, as well as some of those landscape zones between the liner units. Up on the parking deck, we've added some greenery and some new trees and some planter boxes to help green up that deck as much as you can. And there's some private amenity areas tucked in back behind the multifamily building as well. This image is from 31st Street between the multifamily and the liner unit. I think it's still loading, showing that more public-facing element of the landscape that the pedestrian might experience. And then the next image is up on the parking deck, showing what the residents might experience as they look out back towards 31st and the liner units. The project will participate in the GBIP program at the LEED Gold level and achieve certification, both LEED and Energy Star. And in terms of community benefits, there are the two tranches that staff described. There's the standard benefits like the TDM program and the utility upgrades, the bus stop upgrades, things like that. We also have that next layer of the green building certification and on-site affordable housing. We'll have 12 total CAFs in the development. Those are all in the new multifamily building, and that's a mix of 6 one-bedrooms, 6 two-bedrooms. And I think it's appropriate that we close our presentation by talking about the housing, because when you zoom out a little bit, we view the project as a housing success story, right? Without having to displace any residents and without having to build a lot of new expensive parking that would just drive up housing cost, we're able to increase housing supply, increase the diversity of housing options available on the site, and bring a range of affordability to the site by preserving existing market rate affordable in the existing building, and then providing new market rate and committed affordable in the new buildings. So we're very excited about the project. We think it checks a lot of boxes from a housing policy standpoint, and we're looking forward to your discussion and answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, do we have public speakers on this item?
We have no speakers on this item.
Okay, do we have any commissions here to speak to us tonight about the item?
Are you speaking now, Mr. Benson? Okay. Yes, Mr. Benson from Urban Forestry.
Come on up.
Good evening again. My name's Robert Benson. I'm with the Forestry and Natural Resources Commission. My commission provided comments on the Shirlington project at the Site Plan Review Commission meeting in April. We have expressed support for the general project and offered several landscaping recommendations, all in the spirit of providing the maximum possible tree coverage and biophilic landscaping for this very oddly shaped site. We applaud the developer's inclusion of design elements to install trees along South 31st Road and in areas by the entrance driveway and between the new and existing structures at the north side of the 7-story building. It's particularly important for an urban neighborhood like Shirlington that this project maximize green design elements to mitigate any negative environmental and climate-related impacts of such a densely developed site. So we offer several design recommendations to help ensure that the project maximizes opportunities for tree canopy and landscaping enhancements. First of all, we recommend that the street trees be native shade trees, not ornamental, and that they have sufficient soil volume to survive and thrive over time. We've all seen so many sites where we plant street trees and they don't make it because we haven't given sufficient soil conditions for the trees to survive. We suggest that the developers should consult with the Arlington Urban Forestry staff and follow ANSI A300 tree care standards for planting and maintaining trees. A row of healthy canopy trees along South 31st Street will mitigate heat, noise, and air pollution impacts from both the street and 395. We also recommend that the developer observe ANSI A300 guidelines for trees that are planted elsewhere on the site. We recommend that the developer maximize biophilic garage screens in many natural areas between the liner units. This is a very clever design that they have. There's still lots of hardscape. So we suggest that you should do your utmost to create a natural setting with as many plantings as possible between the liner units. Finally, we have a new recommendation that we didn't mention at the SPRC meeting. We suggest that the developer collaborate with Department of Parks and Recreation, the invasive plants team, to sponsor removal of invasives in that triangular piece that's across the street along South 31st Street. Not only would this be a gesture of goodwill toward the community at large, but it would also greatly improve the survivability of the native trees that are in that triangular area, and thereby enhance the screen that that area provides between the Shirlington House and I-395. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. No other commissions. Okay, so Commissioner Lantelmi, let's go to you for the transportation report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was heard at the Monday, June 30th Transportation Commission meeting, and it was very well received by TC. The vote was unanimous, 11-0, to approve this, to recommend this going forward. Our discussion went on the bike lane. We noted that at 12 feet 8 inches, the westbound travel lane is pretty wide, and while we applauded the addition of the bike, the uphill bike lane, which makes a huge amount of sense, we're asking staff, can we make that lane narrower and add make a protected bike lane? And staff said they're still looking at this. It's something that could very well happen. They also noted that where the bike lane meets the bus stop, they're still trying to figure what the best configuration of that will be. So that remains to be seen, but that will be dealt with. Narrowing the main entrance is great to add the ADA compliant pedestrian access to the sidewalk and the bus stops. That's definitely welcome. The parking ratio is perfectly fine given that we have an existing garage. It's not going away. So by not having to add additional parking for these we're taking advantage of existing parking, and that's all to the good. Adding the loading dock off 31st Street is simply a necessity because the alleyway to the side of that new multifamily building is privately owned by the development next door, and the applicant simply does not have access to that. So having to add that one curb cut for the loading dock is unfortunate, but it is necessary, and given the overall positives of the project, it's something we can more than live with. We did raise a construction issue. What accommodations would there be for pedestrians during construction? Because there is a requirement for a 5-foot pedestrian way. The applicant feels that they will be able to do that by maybe moving some the pedestrian way into what's the current street when that parking is eliminated as part of the overall construction. Anyway, that pretty much really sums it up. as I said, it was very, very well received, and we're happy to recommend it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lantelmi. And I'll go to Commissioner Bagley for a subcommittee chair report.
Yes, thank you. I've given all of you the summary of the SPRC. You'll see it's a little light compared to some of the others because in general it was very well received. And a lot of the comments that you heard tonight are already on here. Typical discussion, I think, remaining things that perhaps we just want to ask about would be, sustainability, tree canopy, landscaping, biophilia, green building standards, and any remaining transportation concerns. That's really, there's not much more for me to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Bagley. So we will open this up for discussion. We'll go through our standard list, but if you don't have questions or comments on any of the items, then we'll just skip them. So first item, site location, land use, and site design. So I have a clarifying question, which is, this is for staff. The GLUP map has this zoned for low, medium residential. We are not using it like that. We don't plan to. The applicant has the zoning that they need to do the project. But with Hotel Pentagon, for administrative reasons, we just updated the GLUP map because we thought it should reflect our plan and reality. So why aren't we doing that here?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's my understanding that the 4 Mile Run Valley Plan recommended that GLUP change. And I should mention that the GLUP change was for a portion of the site that was designated for industrial use, which of course was significantly different from the mooted residential use. In this particular case, as with most site plans, if the existing zoning allows it, and we have zoning ordinance regulations that permit basically unlimited additional density, we do not generally change the general land use plan to reflect. And in fact, most site plans that you see before you, the total density generally exceeds the general land use plan guidelines. Even in Hotel Pentagon, it exceeded the medium designation.
Thank you. Any other questions on land use, site design? Okay, then we'll go to building form and architecture. I will ask just a really quick question. I have a vague recollection that this project had some concerns with like the fire marshal. Is that right? Did that get resolved, or was that a different project that I'm thinking of?
That must be another project.
Okay, great. Okay, then we'll go on to transportation. Any questions? I'd love to know about the Transportation Commission's request to narrow the streets and maybe add another bike lane. Is that a possibility?
Well, we weren't looking to add another bike lane. We're happy with the one bike lane going uphill. We didn't feel this is necessary to have one going downhill because bikes were already going pretty fast, and it didn't seem to be particularly critical to have a separate bike lane for the downhill eastbound part of 31st Street. Just I wanted to clarify that.
Okay, so then for narrowing the streets as the Transportation Commission discussed.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, staff acknowledges these concerns about the travel lane widths, especially with the westbound travel lane being 12 feet or exceeding 12 feet. These lanes do serve transit, so for transit lanes, it has to be 11-foot minimum. Staff will take a closer look upon board approval when it's in civil engineering plan form to see if we can shift some of that width towards the bike lane, either create a buffer or some type of enhancement there.
Okay, thank you. Any other transportation? Okay, sustainability, biophilia. Okay, public spaces. Oh, Commissioner Berkey.
Well, yeah, it was raised at the SPRC, and then Mr. Benson raised it tonight. Would you all at least consider some of the plantings in that triangular area across the street that he was referring to? I know that you're not going to develop it, you can't develop it, but anyway, it's just a request to consider it. Mr. Benson brought up some valid points there, and I wondered if you wanted to weigh in.
Thank you. Yes, I think that evaluation would likely take place post-approval as we're putting together the final landscape plan and engaging with the urban forester on final tree selections and things like that. But I think that would be an appropriate time to connect with the county and evaluate a little further.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Bagley.
Also to Mr. Benson's comments, specifically for shade trees. So this will be something that you'll discuss with the urban forester.
Yes, we always collaborate with the urban forestry team and receive their recommendations on appropriate species.
And the natural screens on the garage.
Yes, we did look at that coming out of SPRC, and it wasn't shown in the presentation materials, but if you look in the actual application plans, we've included some precedent images of how that might be accomplished. So we do need to evaluate it a little bit further, but we've added the option for that into the plans.
Excellent, thank you.
We heard the Ballston 1 project last night, and on the side of the building where the wetland is going to be, they had some nice like climbing vines on the building. So maybe something similar could be used for the screens for the garage.
Yeah, something we're going to look into for sure. And of course, we need to balance the viability and make sure that it grows and looks good, but we'll continue to look at it.
Great.
Commissioner Lynn Tillman has his hand up.
Commissioner Lynn, tell me.
I just want to add my voice to what Commissioners Bagley and Berkey have said. There is a movement for putting microforests, mini forests, and this is like the perfect site for it, for something like that. So, clearing out the invasives and letting the natives grow, it's like the perfect site for that sort of thing. So I would very much like to see, if any way possible, clearing out those invasives and making it into a true mini forest. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Guevara.
I also understand Commissioner Benson's comments, and I think they have a lot of merit, and would like to associate myself with Commissioner Bagley, with all the remaining commissioners, and just would like to have some sort of vote of confidence from you to understand whether you'd be willing to look at invasive species and really make it a true sort of oasis of sorts for us to consider and for your plans.
Yes, absolutely. And I think I'll turn the mic over to our landscape architect, who I believe is online via the Teams meeting. But Dan, if you might just take a moment or two and kind of share your vision for the landscape design and the planning that you've done to date and sort of what you anticipate for that final design. Oh my gosh, he's in the room. I saw you.
Just on cue, right?
I saw your name on the Teams, but you're actually here. That's even better. Okay, thank you, Dan.
Could the speaker turn on the microphone, please?
There we go. Is that better? Yeah. We just don't, we haven't evaluated that triangle site like specifically, like everything is in there. We know there's invasives in there, but in terms of what's native and growing and would contribute to canopy. So we'll definitely look at that. Our tree list that's on the plan is pretty much all natives. It's from the Arlington County tree list. I think we are doing a lot of what was recommended in terms of urban forestry and street trees. They are large canopy trees. We've already done a preliminary soil plan that's part of the 4.1 to meet soil requirements. So it's a pretty complicated little puzzle when you put together soil plans. But I think we're in the spirit of exactly what you're talking about. Do the same. A lot of the garage screen, we are looking at some like maybe 1 or 2 vines. We still need to keep air going into the garage, so we can't just cover it. But yeah, having some biophilic aspects of it, really connect people with nature. I think that's the key, is connecting people with the outdoors and what we're doing. So yeah.
Thank you. So we kind of naturally moved into public spaces. Any questions on that? Okay, community benefits. Okay, process, phasing, or construction. Okay, so then I think we are ready for motions.
I move the Planning Commission recommend the County Board adopt the attached ordinance for SPLN 2025-01, site plan number 480, to allow for the construction of a 7-story multifamily building with up to 59 dwelling units, 3 multifamily buildings with 4 dwelling units each, and 1 building with 2 units at the Shirlington House site with modifications of use regulations for additional density, parking ratio, parking space size, drive aisle width, required loading spaces, compact parking, and other modifications necessary to achieve the proposed development plan located at 4201 31st Street South, RPC number 29-003-010-019, subject to the conditions of the ordinance.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Berkey seconds. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion? Okay, then we'll go to a vote. Commissioner Weir, we're starting with you. We'll do in person and then go to virtual.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, Commissioner Bagley,
Aye.
Commissioner Guevara,
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey,
Aye.
Commissioner Robertson.
Aye.
I also say aye, and Commissioner Land, tell me online.
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Do we have any other motions? Okay, great. So then thank you very much to staff for your presentation this evening, to the applicant for bringing us this building that'll add some nice biophilia to the neighborhood, some increased streetscape improvements, some more housing. So in particular, the family-sized units, I love to see that. So thank you. And thank you for our public speaker for prioritizing biophilia and natural resources. Okay, Madam Clerk, can you raise up our next item?
Yes, our second item is editorial corrections to the adopted fiscal year FY 2026 Department of Community Planning, Housing and Development, CPHD, Planning and Zoning fee schedule to become effective upon adoption. We have Cynthia Hernan to present this item. And where's Cynthia Hernan? So, Mrs. Martin, is your team here? Is your team here? Yes. Are you ready to present? Okay, Kevin, is your team here? Okay, let's get it going. Okay, Ms. Hernan is coming through the door. Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for your flexibility today.
Yes, thank you.
Ready to go. Okay. Hi, good evening. Can you hear me okay? Fantastic. Okay. I hope everyone is having a good evening so far and also a great summer. So good to see many of you again. I haven't seen you in quite a bit. I am Cynthia Hernan. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer for CPHD. And I'm here filling actually this role this evening for Alexis Guillot, who actually unfortunately had an unforeseen last minute thing come up. So I'm also joined by Stephen Risi, who is online. Stephen is the Zoning Division Section Chief and will be contributing to discussion and also questions, answering those. Obviously, I'll be speaking to item 2 now, which is the editorial corrections to the FY 26 adopted CPHD planning and zoning fee schedule. In brief, the corrections can be grouped as follows. First off, in the FY 26 budget process, CPHD restructured and reformatted the fee schedule for customers' ease and clarity. That's something we've been wanting to do for quite some time, and we're really happy we've had the opportunity to do that. With any change, and particularly when there's a lot of change involved, inadvertently, a very small set of typographic errors were made that needed to be corrected. Such as adding the square feet, which is 100 square feet, back to the adaptive reuse fee. Another example would be replacing the words additions and modification to existing structures fees back to alterations as it had been previously. And then other very minor items like an S here and there. Also, probably as you more than aware, the board adopted the expanded housing options or EHO fee back in July 2023. And then in September 2024, the Circuit Court issued a ruling that overturned the county board's adoption of the EHO zoning amendments. Additional history on that same topic: in April 2025, as part of the annual budget process, the county board voted to remove the EHO permit fee from the zoning fee schedule as the permit so they were no longer available. Last month, in June, the Virginia Court of Appeals reversed and remanded the previous EHO trial ruling, effectively reinstating the zoning regulation on EHO that the board adopted previously in 2023. This basically, this reinstatement action includes EHO fee. So to this end, a correction is recommended to be made to the FY26 fee schedule to have a fee to follow the appeals court decision. In addition, the fee has been increased to fully capture staff time devoted to the review of those permits actually in FY26. We realize the timing of this item brought before you and therefore the board and discussion is coming at a time during a very recent stay in the appeals court decision. So at this time, we do not know when a decision will be made or what the resulting outcome will be. The decision is made that this is the best we can do is to follow the appeals court decision for now. And if that does not hold sometime in the future when a decision is made, then the EHO permit, if it's to hold that, would be basically stayed or essentially would be paused. So that concludes my comments. Stephen and I are happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers? Okay, and do we have any commissions speaking to us on this item? No. Okay, and there's no committee chair report. So then we can open it up to discussion. Any clarifying questions or comments just generally about the fee schedule? Commissioner Berkey.
All right, I'm going to ask what may be an embarrassingly obvious question, but I think it's worth raising anyway. So there was a while there, about a year and a half, I guess, doing math, where we had a fee on the schedule for a permit that effectively was unavailable to the public, and then it was removed in April. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So then it was removed in April because you could not obtain said permit. And now we're sort of in a legal no man's land, if you will. And so effectively, the county is trying to anticipate what may or may not be happening going forward by reinstating this fee, understanding that the permit still may not be available for an undetermined amount of time.
That is generally correct. What I would add to that, if I could, is that the Virginia Court of Appeals overturned that decision. And so at this point, we have been directed through court to actually reinstate both that permit type and also the actual fee. What we don't know, and I do hear you're speaking to, now we're basically, in yet another sort of volley, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And more recently, that resulted in a stay. Whether that stay, excuse the pun, stays or not is yet to be determined. And so the action that's brought before you and therefore the county board is the corrections as I already spoke to.
I have a follow-up. So in the last day or two, my understanding is that recent stay was reversed. Has staff considered that effectively overturning the Court of Appeals' recent decision? So maybe no. So my understanding is now EHOs again are not permitted because the Court of Appeals, I believe this was reported, I think in ARL today, was basically rescinded its previous judgment, right? I have that right? Okay, my nods from my fellow commissioners. It's been a long day, guys. So that would be my question, is essentially, you don't have to answer this. Is this perhaps premature? I don't know. Maybe we'll chew on that one.
Yeah, you have information, and again, we appreciate that. That is new for me. Keep in mind, I know this doesn't quite directly answer your question. The board report had been written when it was still in the stay environment, and we all knew that, again, it could be topsy-turvy, from there on.
Yeah. No, courts can move at a glacial pace and they
sometimes
can move
very quickly.
Very quickly. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's what's happening here.
Yeah.
If I may ask a follow-on to Commissioner Berkey's point about this being kind of an unstable sort of environment right now, the staff report said the budgetary impact was like 60 or a certain amount of money,
Right.
which assumes that all of the permits are given out. So have like budgetary decisions been made assuming they're getting all of these fees?
I will turn that over to Stephen to speak to, and I'm happy to jump in as well.
Yes, good evening. I'm Stephen Rissy. I work in the zoning division of CPHD. The budget projections are based just off of a review of the number of permits that we had received historically. We obviously do not know how many applications we will receive at any point in the future, especially given we don't know how things will land in the court. The number we think is supported by the number of applications we've received historically. But that's kind of where we are. It does, I think, worth noting, the application fee is assessed at time when the application is made, and it's not just for approved applications. So it is possible for us to have more applications than just those that are approved, invoiced.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, are we ready to go to a vote? Okay, can somebody introduce our motion? I think that's it.
I actually say one thing.
Yes. Commissioner Weir.
I just want to note, I see in the staff report that that the board authorized advertisement of these changes at its June hearing. And my recollection about the RTA is that this topic about more or less restrictive is about the maximum departure from the existing zoning ordinance, right? And so to the extent that this EHO related fee is included in the advertisement, the board still has within its authority to adopt any fee amendments that are in the advertisement, excluding the EHO fee, right? So if we do get more clarity, Commissioner Berkey, Commissioner Peterson, to your questions from the Court of Appeals between now and the board meeting, the board would always be free. I mean, the board is always free to disregard any of our recommendations, but it would be completely free. It would be completely appropriate for it to disregard a recommendation as to one specific part of this. All by way of saying, it's not like we're talking nonsense to the board if the clarity we get from the Court of Appeals is that the stay continues to be in place for some indeterminate period of time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, to our motion.
I move the Planning Commission recommend the county board enact the attached ordinance, attachment A, amending and approving editorial and typographical corrections and to include an expanded housing options EHO fee to the adopted fiscal year 2026 Department of Community Planning, Housing and Development CPHD Planning and Zoning Fee Schedule.
Can I get a second? Peter Robertson, Commissioner Robertson, seconds. Okay, and we don't need to speak to it. No discussion. Okay, then we'll go to a vote. Commissioner Weir,
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley,
Aye.
Commissioner Guevara,
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey,
Aye.
Commissioner Robertson.
Aye.
I also say aye, and virtually Commissioner Lantelmi.
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to staff for being here tonight and for your presentation and work on this item to make sure our fees are up to date so we can pay for nice things in Arlington.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Madam Clerk, can we have the next item?
Our next item for the evening is SPLA 25-00006, Adaptive Reuse Site Plan Amendment to convert an office building to residential use and ground floor retail with modifications for reduced residential and retail parking ratios, compact parking, density exclusions, and other modifications necessary to achieve the proposed adaptive reuse located at 3601 Wilson Boulevard. We have Kevin Lamb to present this item as the project manager.
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Kevin Lamb with the Planning Division, and tonight I'll be providing a presentation on behalf of staff for the 3601 Wilson Boulevard Adaptive Reuse Project. So this item consists of an adaptive reuse site plan amendment in order to convert an office building to residential use with ground floor retail with modifications. So as you can see in this existing versus proposed rendering, this proposal is primarily a use conversion with associated interior renovations with minor changes to the building exterior and front plaza area. So the subject site is located at 3601 Wilson Boulevard in Virginia Square, directly south of the metro station. It's subject to Site Plan 293, which actually encompasses 2 adjacent blocks separated by North Monroe Street. The western block is developed with a 6-story office building. This is known as 1 Virginia Square. And the eastern block is developed with a 9-story residential building with 225 units. And this is known as Virginia Square Plaza. So these next 2 slides are photos of the existing streetscape conditions. So on the left, we have the front of the building on North Monroe Street. Then turning the corner along Wilson Boulevard, we have the streetscape that includes a bus shelter. Around the back of the building, we have North Nelson Street, where the loading docks are currently located, as well as the parking garage entrance. And then turning the corner, we have 9th Street, which is directly adjacent to the metro station. So a bit of background, Site Plan 293 was originally approved in 1991 and subsequently amended in 1998 in order to incorporate a small outlot parcel and then also increase the residential GFA and number of units. Eventually, the office building was completed in 1999 and the residential building completed a year later. The site is currently zoned RC, multiple family dwelling and commercial district, which corresponds with the high medium residential mixed use GLUB designation. The site plan also meets the recently adopted adaptive reuse amendment criteria of the zoning ordinance, which allows for this type of use conversion special exception process. So this adaptive reuse process was established as part of the adaptive reuse policy, which was adopted in response to the urgent challenges facing the county resulting from both the declining commercial office sector as well as the presence of a large supply of obsolete office space. So as outlined in the policy, chronically vacant office buildings put significant strain on surrounding neighborhoods, including listed here negative impacts on the local economic activity, neighboring property values, the overall quality of place and the public realm, as well as the county's fiscal health. So therefore, a core principle of the adaptive reuse policy is that repurposing obsolete office space is a public priority. So while emphasizing the urgency of implementing a more streamlined approach for the review of these adaptive reuse applications, the policy also acknowledges a potential need for policy trade-offs between meeting current county standards and ultimate project viability. So in addition, other adopted plans and policies applicable to the site plan and site includes the Virginia Square Sector Plan, which outlines certain goals and recommendations for things like strengthening neighborhood identity, improving pedestrian connectivity, encouraging transit use and diversifying housing and affordability, as well as supporting neighborhood serving retail. Meanwhile, the Arlington County Retail Plan also identifies this site as a Blue Street typology, which recommends retail or retail equivalent uses and 50% ground floor window transparency. So looking at the proposal itself, as I mentioned, it includes the conversion of a vacant office building, a 6-story office building into 94 residential units, as well as some ground floor retail. So the building's existing below-grade parking garage will be retained and includes 207 total parking spaces. No changes are proposed to the existing height, the building footprint, the total density, or the streetscape conditions. The applicant is proposing interior renovations to support the use conversion, as well as minor exterior changes to the building facade and plaza area. And then lastly, the applicant is requesting the following modifications listed here, which include reduced residential and retail parking ratios, compact parking percentage, and parking stall width, and then some density exclusions in the below-grade garage. So staff conducted community outreach at the beginning of the public review process to the following groups, including Ballston Virginia Square and Ashton Heights Civic Associations, as well as adjacent residents and a neighboring church. The Ballston Virginia Square Civic Association acknowledged staff outreach, but has not provided any formal comments. Meanwhile, Ashton Heights Civic Association stated they have no issues with the proposal, provided it doesn't create any noise, light, or traffic issues. Staff also created a project webpage that includes links to application materials and the applicant's video presentation. And then in terms of the Planning Commission, one of the central aims of the adaptive reuse policy is the creation of a streamlined review process to be more responsive to the changing commercial market sector. Therefore, we ask that you consider the use conversion within the context of this policy, as well as take a look at the appropriateness of the proposed changes, specifically as it relates to the proposed uses, the building exterior, ground floor elements, site landscaping, and parking. So to conclude, staff recommends adoption of the ordinance listed here to permit the adaptive reuse project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. And applicant presentation, you have 10 minutes. And you're welcome to come to the podium if you're more comfortable at the desk, that's fine too.
Good evening. My name is Zach Williams. I'm a land use attorney with Venable, and we are very excited tonight to present the first adaptive reuse site plan amendment in the county. I do just want to take a second to thank staff for all the hard work in getting us here tonight with this new process. It's really been invaluable working with staff throughout the process to get to this hearing tonight, so we appreciate that. I'm going to turn the mic over to Matt Machete with Gilbane, the applicant, to provide a brief presentation.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commission. Thank you, Kevin, for the presentation, Zach. Make a brief presentation here supplementing some of what Kevin has gone over. Share the screen here and go to the next slide, Zach. So 3601 Wilson Boulevard, Gilbane acquired the building earlier this year. Next slide, please, Zach.
Last night there was some drag and it was a bit faster if staff ran the presentation. I'm not sure if.
There's only a few slides, so hopefully it won't be too big of an issue.
Centrally located along the Roslyn-Ballston corridor, just a few blocks from the George Mason University. The site is immediately adjacent to the Virginia Ave metro station, walkable to all that Arlington has to offer, and its main entrance is along Monroe Street. So as it stands today, the building is a 6-story concrete office building constructed in 2000. There's approximately 120,000 square feet of above grade floor area. As Kevin noted, three levels of underground parking with 207 parking spaces. Today, the building is 91% vacant, been so for some time. Come January of next year, the building will be fully vacant. Our proposed condition is to change the primary use from office to residential, doing so including 94 residential units from the 2nd floor to the 6th floor. These range from 1-bedroom to 3-bedroom units. The 1st floor is exclusively residential amenities, retail, and building support spaces. So if we went there today, the two, what we're calling retail spaces that flank the lobby have, to my knowledge, always been used as office space. There's no direct connectivity to the pedestrian way. And so we're proposing to create that connectivity, add storefronts, and bring in true retail uses to those two spaces, which are about 5,600 square feet. On Wilson and 9th Street, the building sets back existingly, and there's terraces out there now for the office users on that top floor. We will utilize those terraces for 6 units that face directly on those terraces. On the ground floor, the residential amenities include some co-working space, lounge area, and fitness center. We are not proposing a roof amenity or any new square footage as part of our proposal. We were attracted to this building because we think it's really well suited for a conversion, and it really only requires pretty limited exterior improvements to accommodate that conversion. So we're proposing a new entry canopy, lighting, and signage at the main entrance along Monroe. There's existing tree wells that need to have trees replaced, selectively providing operable windows to what is now non-operable windows as an added benefit to tenants. And then again, reactivating that streetscape with providing true retail uses on the ground floor. That is the end of our presentation. So I thank you for your time, and we're in the team happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, are there any public speakers on this item?
No, not on this item.
Okay, and do we have any commissions to speak with us tonight? Was this heard by Transportation Commission, Commissioner Lantelmi?
No, it was not.
Okay, and we do not have a committee chair report, is that right? It didn't touch SPRC at all. Okay, so then we can open this right up for discussion. It's our, Commissioner Bagley.
I live down the street from this project, and my employer and I also tried to rent one of those ground floor spaces, and we came this close to it. So it's probably a good thing that we didn't do it as we look at it now. It's a very beautiful building. And I will assume that you'll be doing market rate units in it. Will there be any affordable housing?
There's not a plan to include affordable housing.
All right, and the amenities that are on the 1st floor, which are all like the whole area where you could do meetings and the individual spaces for folks to work and stuff, you're keeping that? Because I mean, it was beautiful when I saw it.
We'll do some strategic modifications, but those spaces largely will remain
Okay.
as organized.
Okay. And one comment that I would make, and this would have been had we rented the space too, I noticed the planters were woeful. And I would strongly recommend any trees and any other things that you plant in there would be native. So if you could do that, that would be great. Okay. And good luck with it. It is a beautiful building. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Guevara.
I think when I've had discussions with some of my fellow commissioners, and something that we've really been keen on is adaptive reuse and sort of turning this vacant commercial space into living places for our residents, which is something I really welcome. And so I'm a big proponent of affordable housing, as my colleagues know, but I do understand that there's a starting point. For instance, Dallas, one of the conversions that they had ended up being all 220 luxury apartments, and it was mixed use. Then you had a place like Austin, where you had lofts, but then they started incorporating some affordable units into it. And then in Ottawa, again, some sort of similar dynamic. And then in Queens, as you know, you sort of started evolving this sort of framework. They were able to turn the JFK Hilton building into 318 affordable apartments. And so often I hear from developers and other stakeholders that it's so hard to do in Arlington. And of course, I would want it to be all affordable, but are there some lessons learned from your experience that perhaps as a starting point, we can say to other developers, like, look, this is a framework and that we can build upon. Of course, it's not perfect, but it's better than having a vacant building. So I would love to hear some lessons learned, some, what has made this project possible. Obviously, it's a beautiful building, so that helps. But is there anything that we should learn about the type of support that folks need in order to do these types of conversions, so that we do allow for there to be more housing in general, and hopefully eventually have more affordable units as well?
So I think there's a few things I'd note that I think make this a reality for Gilbane, and it's something we're able to do. I think one of it is the foresight the county had, leadership staff, economic development, to put policy in place to help streamline these. I don't think this happens without that policy. I think conversions take a lot of different forms. I think when you have a building that you're not doing structural modifications and the skin is beautiful and you're not touching it, it makes it far more accommodating to make the building work. And then this is a high vacancy building, and having a high vacancy building can help execute a business plan, like tenancy complexities in buildings make it much more challenging. So I think those three things you could apply to most any conversion as a set of ingredients to help execute these types of projects.
I'd love to know more about your timeline. You said you expect the building to be fully vacant in January. From that point, how soon do you think before your work is done and you're having your grand opening, which you are inviting all of us to, so we can see the outcome of the work that we've all been doing here?
Our goal, we are advancing design and in construction documentation right now. Our goal is to be ready once this building is vacant to turn around and start construction. We think construction is about a year. And so the beginning of 27, we hope to be delivering the building and occupying it.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Bagley.
So on the construction and pulling things out, will you be repurposing things? And also what potential impact could that have on the neighborhood there with you pulling things out?
So there is an effort to retain, as you noted, some of the great improvements that have been made over the last couple of years by the previous ownership. There will certainly be some demo. Some of the floors are demoed already, but there's a fair amount of demo to be done. We will put together hauling plans and construction logistic plans with our contractor to make that go as smoothly as possible. The details of which I don't have today, but will be given consideration, of course, when those activities are happening.
Yeah, because I do remember taking a tour of some of the other spaces just so we could see. And, like doors, frames, things like that, that you might not be using for the conversion. There's got to be people out there who would want them, I would think. So we just like to prefer that nothing goes to as much as possible does not go to the landfill.
Yep.
So thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Commissioner Lantelmi.
Commissioner Lantelmi.
Yeah, question parking. The garage is there. It's not going away. It's 207 spaces for 94 units. So, that's way overparked. And only the retail can only use so much of that in all probability. I'm wondering whether it'd be possible for you to the extent you're not using it like for storage units for the tenants. And this is rental, I assume. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. If another project gets built nearby, would it be possible for that project to use some of your unused parking so they don't have to build more parking? That we end up using this in a shared way? Has staff, either staff or the applicant can respond to this?
I'll respond to that briefly. So you might have seen one of the modifications that we're seeking is a parking ratio of 0.2. And that is to provide us additional flexibility in that garage to do something with it in the future other than parking, so that we would not have to come back and get a site plan amendment to reduce the parking. So even though we have 207 spaces, we'll only be required to keep a fraction of that in the building. So the idea being that in the future, some future use, or whether it's providing parking to another building or some other use that could be available to the project.
Great. That's a great answer. Thank you.
Commissioner Bagley.
There are some neighbors in the area that are always in desperate need of parking, so that's always a possibility too. And I will say that when I was there, you could eat off the floors in the garage. I mean, even the garage is beautiful, so.
Okay. Anyone else, or are we ready to move to motions? Let's see.
Madam Chair, I'll just say I didn't have any substantive questions. I'm thrilled to see this come into fruition, and with any new policy, especially one where we're trying to streamline process, and that's the incentive. Really excited to see how it turns out, and we'll get some test cases here and we'll evaluate. But great to get more housing, because this is these current conditions aren't doing us any value. And so I'm thrilled to see this go forward, and let's see how this goes in a few years. Thank you.
And to Commissioner Guevara's point earlier, please provide feedback about what went well, where the stumbling blocks were. Staff, I'm sure you are also keeping notes on things that worked really well and things that could have been smoother. We look forward to hearing how the process goes so we can continue to iterate and make sure we can make good use of all this empty commercial office space. Okay, into our motion.
Okay. I move the Planning Commission recommend the County Board adopt the attached ordinance for SPLA 25-00006 to permit the conversion of an existing office building to residential use and ground floor retail with modifications for reduced residential and retail parking ratios, compact parking, density exclusions, and other modifications necessary to achieve the proposed adaptive reuse located at 3601 Wilson Boulevard, subject to all previously approved conditions of site plan number 293 and the conditions of the attached adaptive reuse site plan amendment ordinance.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Guevara. I saw her first. Okay, Commissioner Guevara got it. Okay, would you like to speak to your motion? No discussion. Okay, we'll go to a vote. Commissioner Weir.
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley.
Aye.
Commissioner Guevara.
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey.
Aye.
Commissioner Robertson.
Aye.
I will also say aye, and Commissioner Lantelmi online.
Aye.
Okay, perfect. It passed unanimously. Thank you very much to our applicant for working on this project, taking a little bit of a risk, but we are all really hopeful about the future condition. Thank you to staff for all the work you've been doing on this very first project, and we look forward to additional projects in the future. Okay, Madam Clerk, can you call our next and final item?
Yes, thank you. Our next item is SPLA 24-00047, Adaptive Reuse Site Plan Amendment to convert an office building to residential use and an office building to hotel use, with modifications as necessary to achieve the proposed adaptive reuse of the building located at 2100 and 2200 Crystal Drive. We have Ms. Emma Martin, our project manager, to present this item.
Good evening. Let me pull up my presentation. Okay, hello. I'm Emma Martin with the Department of Community Planning, Housing and Development, and I'll be presenting the Crystal Drive Adaptive Reuse item. This is located at 2100 and 2200 Crystal Drive. The item consists of an adaptive reuse site plan amendment to convert the 2200 Crystal Drive office building to residential use and the 2100 Crystal Drive office building to hotel use with modifications. The proposal is primarily a use conversion associated with interior renovations and some changes to the building facade and limited changes to the landscaping, specifically on the west side of the 2200 Crystal Drive building to replace some existing pavers. The site consists of two nearly vacant 11-story office buildings with underground parking, ground floor retail, and a circulation area for the underground. Adjacent properties include the 220 20th Street apartments to the north, Crystal Park office buildings and open space to the east, Crystal Plaza 5, which is currently occupied with volleyball courts temporarily to the south, and Crystal Plaza apartments to the west. A little bit of background, Site Plan 11 allowing for a 6-building office complex was originally approved in 1963 and amended various times over the years. The 2100 and 2200 Crystal Drive buildings were both constructed in 1967. The parcels included in this application are currently split zoned CO, RA 4.8, and CO Crystal City, while the actual buildings themselves are located in the CO zoning district. The applicant's not proposing any changes to the existing zoning. And the CO zoning district corresponds with the high office apartment hotel GLUP designation, and the site's also identified as the Crystal City Coordinated Redevelopment District indicated by Note 1. The site also meets the recently adopted adaptive reuse amendment criteria of the zoning ordinance, which allows for this type of use conversion special exception process. This process was established as a part of the adaptive reuse policy, which was adopted in response to urgent challenges facing the county resulting from declining commercial office sector and presence of a large supply of obsolete office space, as you just heard. As outlined in the policy, chronically vacant office buildings put a significant strain on communities, including negative impacts on local economic activity, neighboring property values, overall quality of place in the public realm, and the county's fiscal health. Therefore, a core principle of the adaptive reuse policy is that repurposing obsolete office buildings is a public priority. While emphasizing the urgency of implementing a streamlined approach for the review of adaptive reuse applications, it also acknowledges a potential need for policy trade-offs between meeting current county standards and ultimate project viability. In addition, other adopted plans and policies applicable to this site include the Crystal City Sector Plan, which outlines goals and recommendations, including but not limited to strengthening sense of place, encouraging human-scaled architecture and urban design, as well as multimodal access and connectivity, and ensuring long-term economic sustainability. The Arlington County Retail Plan also identifies the Crystal Drive frontage of the site as a Gold Street typology, which recommends retail equivalent uses and 65% ground floor window transparency. This application proposes to convert two nearly vacant 11-story office buildings into a 195-unit residential building and a 344-unit hotel room hotel, and to retain the existing parking garage in the below grade parking garage with 836 spaces. There's no changes to the existing height, building footprint, and streetscape conditions on Crystal Drive. And if the applicant wanted to make changes to landscaping and streetscape after approval of this site plan amendment, they would need to file an administrative change to amend the existing landscape plan. With this request, the applicant proposes to convert approximately 54,960 square feet of area approved as Crystal Drive retail to residential and hotel uses. The proposal overall results in a slight decrease in total density and includes interior renovations to support the use conversions, exterior changes to the facade, and as I mentioned, a replacement of section of pavers on the western side of the 2200 Crystal Drive building. The applicant seeking modifications for required parking, including the residential, office, retail, and hotel parking ratios, as well as the compact parking ratio to allow the existing compact parking spaces to remain. A key focus of this application's review has been the proposal to close off 2 points of access to the from Crystal Drive to the existing interior pedestrian concourse, also known as the underground, to incorporate these areas into hotel and residential lobby space. With these closures, 4 other points of access to the underground will remain on this block, including a commitment to provide a new access point near 23rd Street and Crystal Drive with the Crystal Plaza 5 redevelopment project if that's implemented. This application has prompted discussion considering the 2010 Crystal City Sector Plan, which encourages maintaining the underground from 12th Street to 23rd Street to support transit access, pedestrian connectivity, and adaptable design. However, the sector plan also acknowledges parts of the underground may evolve through redevelopment as seen with Crystal Plaza 1 and 5. Staff reviewed the proposal with consideration of the November 2024 adaptive reuse policy, which allows for trade-offs between policy goals and project feasibility. Given changing market dynamics and the sector plans aim to stimulate economic growth, initially in response to BRAC, staff views this modification to the underground as a reasonable compromise in support of housing and hospitality expansion. The conversion of these 2 vacant office buildings will provide active residential and hotel uses on this block, with enlivened building presence on both Crystal Drive and at the block's upper internal courtyard. Staff conducted community outreach at the beginning of the public review process to the following groups, including the Crystal City Civic Association, Aurora Highlands Civic Association, and the National Landing Business Improvement District. The National Landing Business Improvement District provided a letter of support for the project, and the Crystal City and Aurora Highlands Civic Associations provided letters stating that they support the overall concept, but have concerns and recommendations regarding the underground, parking, pickup and drop off, and process. The Crystal and Pentagon Cities Council also reviewed this request and provided a letter that generally stated support for the proposed application and efforts to continue revitalizing the area through investment into functionally obsolete buildings, while also requesting some guidance from the board on how these applications should be considered alongside established plans and policies. Staff created a project webpage that includes links to the application materials and the applicant's video presentation. And one of the goals of the adaptive reuse policy, as I mentioned again, was to provide a more streamlined review process to be more responsive to the changing commercial market sector. Therefore, these adaptive reuse projects do not undergo the typical major site plan review process, as they're focused only on the change of use of the existing buildings. The scope of this site plan amendment focuses mainly on minor changes to the facade and internal programming of the 2 buildings, rather than the streetscape, site, and landscaping elements. Therefore, we ask that you consider the use conversion within the context of this policy and the appropriateness of the proposed changes, specifically as it relates to the proposed uses, building exterior, ground floor elements, and parking. Therefore, staff recommends adoption of the ordinance to permit the adaptive reuse project.
Thank you very much, Ms. Martin. And now we can go to the applicant for a 10-minute presentation.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Given the lag that we saw, I would ask if Ms. Martin would be so kind as to share our presentation as well. Thank you. While she's doing that, good evening. My name is Kedrick Whitmore. I'm a land use and zoning attorney with Venable LLP, and we're very excited to bring you the adaptive reuse proposal for 2100 and 2200 Crystal Drive. I first want to thank staff for all their hard work in putting together and implementing this policy and working through this project in that new system. It was a significant amount of work, and at these type of hearings, I know it's not always clear just how much work goes on behind the scenes, but staff is really deserving of some praise and credit for everything that they have done here. You've just heard 2 presentations about the background of the adaptive reuse and the commercial market, so I'm going to skip over that and spare you. So if Ms. Martin, if you wouldn't mind advancing the slides past this, next one, please, next one. And we will jump into the meat of the current proposal. So on the next slide, you'll see here the project is located on the Plaza block in Crystal City, just north of the intersection with 23rd Street. The project site is here on the left side of the image, and you can see that it is in close proximity with a lot of the new development that JVG Smith has undertaken in Crystal City. There are 4 new high-rise buildings, a new metro entrance, the water park, the restaurant at Surreal across the street. So quite a lot happening in this area. On the next slide, you'll see some information about the current conditions. This building and the associated ground level spaces are the perfect candidates for adaptive reuse. This is what this policy was written for. They are nearly vacant, functionally obsolete areas that cannot be released, but they do lay out fairly well for residential and hotel. This is exactly the type of conversion that the policy envisioned, transforming dead space into something that generates revenue and meets community needs. We're proposing to convert these vacant office buildings into 195 residential units for 2200 Crystal Drive and a 344 unit 2-brand hotel for 2100 Crystal Drive. The structures themselves will be entirely maintained along with the garage, although the hotel will include a new facade treatment. Development using this retention and reuse strategy has a host of benefits when compared to your traditional ground-up development, right? 1, it will happen quickly. There's no demolition, there's no excavation, no pile driving. 2, it will happen with less interruption. Again, there's no demolition, there aren't going to be piles driven. Most of the work is going to be interior to these existing buildings. 3, it will be inherently sustainable. The reduction in embodied carbon emissions of not having to demo a building and the associated parking is huge. And finally, it fills a major gap in the market. In terms of the residential, obviously there's a great need across the county for more units. These in particular skew a bit larger because of the building footprint. And that's something I know we've heard many times, the need for more units. Sorry, Ms. Martin, could you bring it back one? Sorry. And the hotel in particular and the brands that we are looking at will really fill a need in this area. They're actually going to help the office leasing. That's what we've heard a lot from office tenants, is that there really is a dearth of available hotel rooms. And of course, the flagship restaurant associated with the hotel is going to help further activate Crystal Drive. So we're not only creating a product that meets needs, we're doing so in a way that itself is a positive. So the next slide is a plan view with a little more information about the site. And you'll see the 2 new lobbies there tucked in along with the existing retail at Crystal Drive. These retail areas are going to continue to operate through construction and after completion. There was also some discussion, I know, about the PUDO, the pickup drop-off. We're going to be utilizing existing spaces out front along Crystal Drive. You can see those highlighted in yellow in this image. So a couple questions have come up throughout the process. On the next slide, one of them is about the former underground space. And that is something we're actually really excited about. We're really excited to be able to reuse some of that former underground space for the retail entry, or excuse me, for the entry to these buildings and the lobbies for these buildings. Bringing life to that area, I think in itself is a nice adaptive reuse. We are not proposing to touch any parts of the underground on this block with this application. The next slide, there was some discussion about parking. We are reusing the existing Plaza block garage. It is a massive garage. We are going to keep the parking ratios at 0.3 per space, or excuse me, per unit for both the hotel and the residential, which is in line with the residential parking working group recommendations. And then lastly, on the next and final slide, one of the really exciting elements of this adaptive reuse is the ability to continue the activation that's been taking place across Crystal Drive. This is helping to contribute to the continued transformation of Crystal City from a kind of a dead office park to a thriving urban environment. And I think that really is the goal of this adaptive reuse policy, to take that aging office stock and turn it into a viable community serving use. And these adaptive reuses and these 2 buildings are going to play a significant role in the next phase of that revitalization. And I think this project is a great example of the success of this policy. So with that, I'll close and will be available for any questions you may have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers?
Yes, we do. We have 2 speakers. We have John Musso and we have Eric Cassell.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Commission. I'm John Musa, Government Affairs Manager at the Arlington Chamber of Commerce, and we strongly recommend that the Planning Commission please recommend the adoption of this joint adaptive reuse amendment. To reiterate what both the applicant and staff have said, this is a incredibly strong project that not only advances exactly the type of goals that was envisioned with the adoption of the adaptive reuse policy back in November, but it really continues the transformation of an entire neighborhood of Crystal City and Crystal Drive. As stated, this transforms 500,000 square feet of empty, functionally obsolete office space into 195 new homes and 344 new hotel rooms at a time when not only is Arlington, as we all know, facing a shortage of housing across all price points, but also while National Landing as a neighborhood is facing a noticeably reduced supply in hotel rooms. So this is something that advances both goals. This advances not just adaptive reuse broadly, but really the entire envisioning scope of the Commercial Market Resiliency Initiative of trying to more nimbly adjust to the realities of modern Arlington and our modern age. And to that point, the transformation of Crystal Drive has been something that's been a really dramatic and tremendous improvement to this entire neighborhood of Crystal City and National Landing as a whole. And to re-envision, the old entrances to the underground into new and vibrant residential lobbies and restaurants would be a tremendous boost, not just for future residents and visitors, but to the whole neighborhood, especially as we're seeing such exciting things as CC to DCA, the pedestrian bridge, and other new multimodal improvements at the new Crystal City Metro Station. This is an incredibly vibrant area that's only going to get more vibrant, and this project would tremendously complement it. So we strongly urge you to please recommend the adoption of this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Musso. Okay, Mr. Cassell. And you can raise the podium if that's more comfortable for you. You can raise the podium if you want, if that's more comfortable. There should be a button, I think, right underneath the.
Underneath. That's good enough. Okay. I'm Eric Castle. I'm president of the Crystal City Civic Association. Talked about our memo generally supports this. As a general rule, we're pleased to see residential, especially 2 and 3 bedroom, and a hotel. All those are desperately needed in our area. And so in general, we're supportive of this. However, there's several things we're concerned about. One is the process. During this process, we actually were approached by the applicant and asked to come to our Crystal City Civic Association meeting. Unfortunately, because of county and everything else, they had to cancel, and there were some changes. And thus, the process whereby the civic associations and the community can be a part of this process is unclear to us. If this were to happen again, I have no idea what our role is, what chances we have for comment or anything like that. So the process to us is very confusing and not transparent at all. So what's going to happen, I don't know in the future. Our second major concern is the underground. They have done some things, but we've got one specific request is that both lobbies have a door to the underground. It can be fobbed. No, it's just for the residents and hotel guests, but we would ask that a connection be made from the lobbies to the underground. That was one of our requests. Our other concerns just generally were about parking in Pudo. Both of those are generally a lack of knowledge on our part, and so we don't know what the situation is. We know there's lots of parking spaces, so how many they wall off or set for this is just a question. There's plenty of parking spaces for this that I'm sure there won't be a problem in the end, but just how many are dedicated to these buildings. And finally, of course, we're always concerned about parks. The parks in the Crystal City have not been coming along as fast as we would like. And so we appreciate the county continuing to get the parks there. So that's.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that and appreciate the feedback about needing clarity in the process. Okay, do we have any commission speaking to us tonight?
We do not.
Okay, and Transportation Commission did not hear this. Is that correct, Commissioner Lantelmi?
That's correct.
Okay, and we don't have a committee chair report, so we can open this up to discussion. Commissioner Bagley.
I guess my question is, as we evolve the commercial resiliency project within Arlington, what is the process insofar as perhaps some of the remarks by the Civic Association? What are some of the maybe minimal requirements or whatever, just so that we know? Thank you.
So in terms of process, staff followed the county board policy on transformation of commercial office buildings in Arlington, which you know was adopted by the board in November. The proposed amendment involved the review of Planning Commission prior to being considered by the board. And then, as I mentioned, we did our normal outreach to civic associations via email. We kept a project webpage that had links to the application materials. We made them aware of each time that there was a submission. And it's also my understanding that the applicant had meetings with the civic associations, which is typically done outside of, with staff's involvement. And that was the process that we followed for this set of 2 adaptive reuse projects, Kevin and mine.
And I'll just be clear, for the members of the public, this is a small group of projects that would use this expedited process because we so desperately want to fill this vacant space and make good use of the vacant space. There's only a handful of buildings in the county that qualify for this kind of expedited process. And as we heard in the earlier presentation tonight, it was really only feasible, this conversion from commercial to residential, because the process was expedited. That said, we do want community members to have the opportunity to provide feedback. So staff and the applicant should be reaching out to you, giving you the opportunity to come to our meeting tonight, to the county board meeting in a week and a half, opportunities to submit letters and get involved when you first hear about it and ask questions. But it is a new process. It was intentionally designed to incentivize the conversions of this empty space so that we can have more vibrant neighborhoods with more people and more retail opportunities and safer streets with more people walking around them and using our restaurants and our shops. So,
Commissioner Lantelmi.
Commissioner Lantelmi, please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I was initially a bit concerned about the closing off of a couple of entrances to the underground. And as you fellow commissioners might already know, I'm not exactly a fan of the underground, but nonetheless, it's there and it's used and it's part of the comprehensive plan. I'm much more comfortable now seeing the diagram and that there's other entrances off Crystal Drive to the underground that are quite nearby. So I don't think that this is a concern for me anymore, and especially the apartment building for security purposes, it would have to be closed off. So I'm no longer concerned about that. I do want to say I'm very much in favor of this expedited process for this. It's very important that we get this done quickly. And in many ways, it really seems to be similar to a form-based code in its original conception, in that, as long as the exterior fits for what the code would say, we really don't care what goes on inside. And that's what a classic form-based code would look like, and being done on an expedited process too. So I'm very much in favor of this. I'm very much interested in seeing how other buildings come through. And I do agree with Chair Peterson that we do need feedback from the neighborhood, but not at the expense of slowing this down. So getting them involved right away so they can provide feedback is something that's important, even if we don't have a formal SBRC type of process. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Guevara.
So I have a couple of questions. The first one sort of being the first that I asked of the former applicant, besides sort of the expedited process, what made this realistic sort of endeavor and lessons learned?
Sure. Well, I think as others have alluded to, these types of developments aren't really possible unless some of the cost savings that we received in terms of using existing structure, right, and being able to cut those costs in terms of demolition, in terms of building new structure, new garage, And also in terms of the timing, right? In terms of the process, it provides a level of certainty and a path that's a little clearer when meeting those very specific criteria. As Chair Peterson pointed out, it's a very limited number of buildings, uses, and types of projects that would qualify for this type of process. But having that process and understanding that there is a fairly soon to be well-worn path that everyone understands, I think really does help create greater viability, and to your point earlier, to allow for more housing overall.
Great, thank you. And then my second point, and I know the answer to this, but I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. There's no affordable units or AHIF funding provided through this, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So as I mentioned, and for the former applicants, I am very welcoming of these types of projects, particularly because we need more housing irrespective. I lived at 2600 Crystal Drive at Concord, so right across from me, I used to look at this empty building that I was like, oh, okay, well, this is useless. No offense. But I also gave the example of like in Dallas, it started with 220 luxury apartments and then all the way to Queens where we had 318 affordable apartments thereafter. So there's a progression. And even though, like I said, I'm very supportive, one of the things, and I'm sorry that the other applicant went before you, but the door was open. Now the door is open. How do you walk through it, right? What kind of precedent do you set so that I don't want it to be the case that, yes, of course, we need market resiliency, we need all those things, but I also think that we need to live by the values by which we claim to stand. And so I think this is, as we go and develop, I think this is a really great opportunity. And I've seen so many of your projects and how dedicated you are to making those commitments. I think that as we're evolving this conversation, that we really need to keep in mind that we need to have affordability in mind. And if there's any way that, I know this is infancy stage, right? But there's any way to sort of make this somehow doable, that we need to think about the community at large, because if not, we're going to kind of fall into the prey that we've been for so long, where there isn't sufficient affordable housing, and then we're sort of catching up. And so I think there's a great opportunity from the beginning now to sort of level set. But again, I do want to say that I understand it's the beginning and we need this now, but just something for you guys to consider as you're moving along and having hopefully more opportunities to do these types of projects. Thank you.
I have a related question to what Commissioner Guevara has raised, and it's more directed to staff. Could our affordable housing partners in Arlington use AHIF funds to do a project like this where they're converting commercial space to residential?
I think that would be something we'd have to look into. I don't have an answer for you right now on that. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, anything is possible. Matt Pfeiffer with Planning Division for the record. Anything is possible. We'll take it back to housing. I think that right now that's not something that's actively being contemplated, but it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, just to clarify, Commissioner Peterson, we did have this discussion with House Commission at the time of the policy, and I think even the Planning Commission. And yes, it would be allowed, meaning they would be treated just like a developer. How they finance that affordable housing is outside of our site plan process, you know. So they would certainly, those types of projects would be eligible if they could make the cost work.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments about this project,
Yeah.
Commissioner Berkey? I'm sorry, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Lynn, tell me.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have no further comments.
No, I insist on knowing the name of your cat when this meeting is over, Jim.
All right. Her name is Maserati.
Okay. I'm going to jump in here if that's all right. Okay. So I was looking, this did go to the Crystal and Pentagon Cities Council. Is that right? Their meeting?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. If in the future, if we can just note that on the project site that it did, because I looked and I saw, so was there any substantive feedback? This was a June meeting they had.
I was not in attendance, but they summarized their comments in the letter that was provided.
Okay, so that's on me. So the point I'm trying to make is I remember when this policy came before us, I believe we voted unanimously to recommend it to the county board. Speed is the chief equity we're looking for here, right? So we are trading a lot of process for the equity of speed, predictability for applicants. And so we're streamlining, which is a nice way of saying cutting, right? Reducing process. It does give me comfort that at least that group weighs in sort of similar to the way that the form-based code advisory working group weighs in for form-based code projects. It's not a, it's not a formal recommendation, but it is at least kind of one, way station, right? As opposed to the typical SPRC model and you go around and do all that. So that gives me comfort. So just want to note that. Okay, different non sequitur, different question. The parking, I think here we still have a lot of excess parking you'll have, right? Is there any plan for that at this point?
So the parking's located in basically a massive structural garage upon which every building on the block sits. So there's not much that can be done kind of piecemeal with that parking. It is also, one of the things I think we've been able to achieve with that parking is being able to serve different uses in different buildings. So we have kind of a patchwork together of reusing that parking for many, many projects throughout Crystal City, not just those that are on the block.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Commissioner Bagley.
So I just have one more question about process as a former Civic Association president. So you send out letters to the Civic Association, yes?
We email them.
You email, that's fine. And then your role is to just reach out to them, or do you meet with them? And I guess I just want to know, was there a breakdown in this case or something? In this one case where the Civic Association seems to not be informed? I'm just curious.
So a few things, and I may turn to you all because I wasn't at all the meetings, but first and foremost, JBG Smith, because they have so much property interest in this Crystal City National Landing area, they do hold, I believe it's monthly or every other month, monthly meetings with the civic associations to keep them abreast of all projects, right? This one included. Separate and apart from that, we did hold an informational meeting for community associations a month ago, thereabouts, to discuss it. So while there hasn't been a formalized process associated with the adaptive reuse in the same way you see for a major site plan amendment, we have done our level best to keep folks informed and understanding what's going on.
We did have to schedule one and cancel, I think is what was referenced there. And it was mostly because we were all sort of wading through the process collectively and felt we weren't prepared to update the community. We didn't know what to tell them in terms of the process yet. And we were hoping we would have had it figured out by then. So it was unfortunate. We just had to reschedule.
So I just would like to put in there that maybe we flag that for the future because we want everybody on board with this. Thank you.
And I would love to know what your timeline is looking like to open your doors to tenants and hotel visitors.
Yeah, it's exciting. So we're moving as quickly as we can, taking that equity of speed, as you said. So the deals are contingent upon these land use approvals, and then we'll be completing design by the end of the year. And if capital markets comply, starting construction by the end of the year. Both projects could go simultaneously. They both take roughly 18 months to complete, which is half the time that you're probably used to seeing. So we could be open by the end of 27.
Great. Well, hopefully we can do a field trip there.
Yeah.
Commissioner Bagley.
So I didn't know what the heck a double brand hotel was, so I did have to look it up. So that's interesting. So two brands stay in the same spot?
Yes, so they'll be tiered vertically. So the first 5 floors are one brand, and the top floors are another brand. And they'll have separate lobby entrances off of Crystal Drive and sort of a little separation of experiences in different levels for amenities, but they'll share a similar elevator bank, and your key will take you to one floor versus the other. Yeah.
Did we have another question? Well, I think we're ready for motions, but I think Commissioner Guevara stepped out for a minute. So do you want to go check if if she's just taking like a text, doing a text or something, and if she can come back. Pardon? I just will check. Okay, yeah, just check really quick so we don't have to delay too much longer. Of course, bio breaks are important too. Transition line. Okay. Two, three.
She will be back.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay. Can we introduce the motion?
I would just say we're going to take a very brief recess. While we wait for our sixth commissioner to rejoin.
Okay. We are just going to take a quick recess while we wait for our sixth commissioner. Okay, we are ready for any motions that we have right here. You got the, oh no.
I move the Planning Commission recommend the county board adopt the attached ordinance for SPLA 24-00047 to permit the conversion of an office building to residential use and an office building to hotel use with modifications necessary to achieve the proposed adaptive reuse of the buildings located at 2100 and 2200 Crystal Drive, subject to all previously approved conditions of Site Plan 11 and the conditions of the attached adaptive reuse site plan amendment ordinance.
Do I
I'll
have?
second.
Okay, Commissioner Lantelmi. Okay, would you like to speak to your motion? Okay, any discussion? Okay, then we will go to a vote. Commissioner Weir.
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley.
Aye.
Commissioner Guibar.
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey.
Aye.
Commissioner Robertson.
Aye.
And I also say aye. Online, Commissioner Lantelmi.
Aye.
Okay, and that passes unanimously. Are there any other motions on this item? Okay, so that concludes that item. Thank you very much to our applicant for proceeding with this project to make great use of our empty commercial space. Thank you to staff for all the work you've done on this new process. It seems like it's going pretty smoothly with the exception of maybe a little bit more public community engagement, but we're happy to see it moving forward and look forward to more projects in the future. Thank you to staff taking care of us tonight. We have one more very important item to discuss, unless Madam Clerk tells me there's something else. Okay, and that is, besides this being our third hearing of the month, today is Commissioner Daniel Weir's last hearing with the Planning Commission. So tonight, I have the bittersweet honor of saying farewell to my colleague as he concludes more than 8 years of service on the Arlington County Planning Commission. Over the years, Daniel has taken on many leadership roles that we have to offer on the Planning Commission. He chaired the commission itself. He led the Form-Based Code Auxiliary Working Group, the Zoning Subcommittee, and he has steered countless site plan review committee meetings, getting into the weeds of complex projects. He's also served as our liaison to many community groups, including the Economic Development Commission, NAOP, and the Columbia Pike Partnership. And I know they've all really valued your connection to them. And throughout it all, Daniel, you've always brought something invaluable to every conversation, which is a deep knowledge of Arlington County zoning and an unwavering commitment to making our community stronger. You have been a true champion for housing and transportation, working to expand access to attainable and affordable homes in the county and making our streets safer and more welcoming to everyone. And of course, your service didn't stop with the Planning Commission. You've been active all across Arlington on the Transportation Commission, the Thomas Jefferson Working Group, and as president of the Barcroft School and Civic League. You and your wife are raising 2 lovely children here in Arlington and continuing your deep investment in our community's future. You are a trusted, informed leader, a reliable colleague, and a steady presence on the commission. I've learned so much from you over the years, and as the current chair, I can honestly say that it helps to stand on the shoulders of giants, especially when a giant is as tall as you are. And we are all going to miss having you on the commission. We are grateful for your time, energy, and thoughtfulness that you've poured into your work. So thank you, Daniel, for everything. Can I have your consent for a hug?
Thank you so much.
Commissioner Bagley.
As a former Civic Association president, I wasn't quite sure what to make of him back in the day. I wasn't quite sure. And some of the comments that he made at the time, I thought, And when I got to the commission, I learned a little bit more about why he made the comments that he did. And I appreciate the opportunity to have actually then worked with you in this role. And I will say, probably one of the biggest things that we had to do was to queue up. You had to deal with the whole RTA to queue up for missing middle, and the amount of hours and work and mincing that out and trying to get everybody to understand. That was a yeoman's task. And I think that when it came back to the Planning Commission for the final go round, it would not have gone as smoothly as it did had you not put in those hours of work. And I know that it was beyond a full-time job then. So you have definitely made a mark in the community. You told that the other night to Matt, you too have. So thank you for that.
I think for better or worse, he's the reason why I'm here. So if you guys are having a hard time, I actually interviewed with him and I asked him what to expect, and he was really frank and honest about everything. Unfortunately, I don't think I took him seriously, but I'm finding out the hard way. But he's been, I think one of the great things about being in the commission is that although we may not always agree, I think we're very collegial and we support each other. I loved his passion, whether it's about pedestrian safety and him really taking the time to actually, hey, tell me why that matters to him, why it matters to him, and giving me an opportunity to also discuss. And I think just your openness and your willingness to reach out sort of across the aisle, for better or worse, I think really speaks to volumes and your ability to, foster a caring environment where everyone feels comfortable to say what they feel. So thank you. And you're going to be greatly missed.
Commissioner Lantelme online.
Yeah, Daniel, you joined a couple months after I did. And it was a very different commission back then, of course, because, since then everybody's turned over. What I always appreciated, especially as a new commissioner, I wasn't always sure what was going on or what my role was or what my opinions were, other than there were times when I really felt strongly about something, and you were the only one who would support me on it. It was very comforting to know that I was not crazy, that if somebody else like you could agree with me, even if nobody else did, it's like, okay, it's okay. This is okay for me to do this. I learned tremendous amount. I have tremendous respect for your opinions, and not just because you often did agree with me. You're one of the people I always would look to, and took your comments, your ideas very, very seriously in making my decisions on how to come out on any particular project or amendments to those motions. So we will definitely be missing you. You're a great counsel to have, and both small c and, since you are a lawyer, had to be small c. But again, I've thoroughly enjoyed our time together on the commission. Thank you and best wishes.
Okay, Commissioner Berkey.
I'm still in deep denial about this. But hey, there's still like 9 days to modify the county board agenda for July's meeting. So, I've known Daniel for quite a few years now. Obviously, I've gotten to know him quite better, having been on the planning commission with him for 2 years. It is a regret that I wasn't on the planning commission when he was chair. I would say, our friendship really was forged, as Nia had mentioned, during his time as chair. We don't have an EHO ordinance with a lot of people. Kelly Brown, a lot of members of our planning staff, our county manager, our board at the time. But Daniel and obviously folks on PC at that time, Daniel was incredibly instrumental in ensuring that we move forward with expanded housing options, which we will have in Arlington County. Okay, we're going to prevail, and we will absolutely be providing more options. But Daniel was planning commission chair. I was housing commission chair. Chris Slatt was transportation chair. We were fortunate to have Katie Crystal as the county board chair. And that was just such a formative experience. Daniel just brings such a presence. He's always done the homework. He's served as a mentor for me on the planning commission. And it just really can't be overstated how much he'll be missed on this body. Just every time there's a question about the comp plan or how this fits with something we did 5 years ago, Daniel is that fountain of institutional knowledge for at least me to kind of get my bearings on how we approach things with the county board. So again, a couple days for the county board agenda to be modified, so maybe we'll work on that. But in the event this is your last meeting, you'll be dearly missed, but I know you won't be far.
Commissioner Robertson.
The only thing I'll add to all of the wonderful things that have been said and are all true is that I marvel at the extraordinarily quiet passion that Daniel brings to the issues that he cares about. And sometimes that quiet passion catches up with you slowly. And I've noticed that on at least 2 occasions I can think of right now where I voted in a different way than Daniel did. By the time I got home late in the evening, I thought I made a mistake. I should have been on the same side he was on. But you've taught me on this commission, and look, I'm very old. I didn't think there's anything else I could learn, but I've learned from you, Daniel, and among those things is to slow down, not be quite as certain of my infallibility as I was, and to think carefully about things. You really are a marvel. Thank you for your service.
Okay, you're welcome to say something or just blush and smile and.
Well, it really has been, thank you all so much. It really has been a privilege to serve this community with each of you, and some of you to spend a little bit of time getting to know, and some of you to, our first interactions were before I came onto the Planning Commission, and I've admired your leadership every step along the way, and so I've gotten more time, when Commissioner Lentelmi with you as well. I would love nothing more than to be able to give a personalized response to all of the kind things that each of you have said. But in lieu of that, and because I think my kids are still awake, I just want to say thank you all so much for your kind words. And again, it's been to grow with you, to serve with you, to try to make this community a better community for us and for the people who will come to it after us. In every little way that we can. It has been an honor. And the same goes to so many of you who are in this room tonight, in all parts of this room, and to people who aren't as well. Thank you all so much.
Okay, so with that, tears in our eyes, we will say thank you to everyone here. And tonight's hearing summary will be presented to the county board at their upcoming meeting by Commissioner Berkey. And this meeting is now adjourned.
That was really kind.